Hi, my name's Marina, and I'm a river scientist with the City of Santa Cruz Water Department. And today I'm standing here at Loch Lomond to go over our watershed field trip science stations with you. Now normally we would love to have you here in person to do these, but since we can't make that happen today, we've made this video for you instead. So in this video, I'm going to go over a couple water quality parameters. Specifically, I'm going to go over temperature and pH. Why is it important to think about temperature and to measure temperature? Well, it's important because that affects all the living things in the lake and on land too. Think about how you feel when it's a really cold day, or a really hot day, or maybe a really nice day where you feel really comfortable. Same thing happens for animals in the lake or in the stream. If the water gets really warm, they might have to work harder to survive and be happy. Same thing might happen if it's really cold. So all these temperatures affect all of the animals and plants. I have a diagram here that shows different kinds of fish and which temperatures they're usually the happiest in. So some animals like salmon and rainbow trout, which are fish that we see around here in Santa Cruz, they need very cold water in order to be happy. And if they got put in warm water, they'd be really unhappy and they could even die. But other fish like a bluegill or a largemouth bass, they're perfectly happy in really warm water, so it doesn't affect them as much. So all these different animals have a very wide range of temperatures, or they all have a specific temperature that they're happiest in. So it's important for us to measure the temperature of the water in the stream and the lake to make sure that those environments are healthy for the animals that we have in our environment here. One more thing we should consider about temperature is how does temperature change in the air and in the water? One of the biggest things that causes temperature to change is the sun. The sun is constantly heating our planet, and that's increasing the air temperature, which can also increase the water temperature. So water can be heated directly by the sun, or if the air is really warm, the air can indirectly heat the water from the sun in that way too. Another thing that affects the temperature of the water is things that are blocking the sun. Or trees and plants along the edges of the stream or the lake would be blocking the sun and could be even blocking the wind and keeping all of that warm air from going near the water. All of that can help keep the water at a very cool, comfortable temperature for all the animals nearby. Another thing that temperature has a big effect on in the stream and the lake is the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water, and that's how much oxygen is available for the animals to breathe. I go over in another video about dissolved oxygen a little bit more, so you can learn more about that. But just keep in mind that temperature has a big impact on how hard the animals have to work to breathe in the water. Alright, so here we are at our board. And before we get our temperature measurements, the first thing we always do as scientists when we're collecting data is fill out our data sheet. It's really important to write the date, the time, and your location. So for today, it's Tuesday, May 12th. The time is 1:30 p.m. and our location is at Loch Lomond. So let's take a look at our air temperature first. This one was hanging on the whiteboard, and I'm going to draw it in here on this thermometer so you can see it easier, and we'll try and figure out what number it is. So we start here and it's red, and the red on the thermometer goes all the way up this line here. So let's see if we can count what temperature it is today in the air. So we see I've labeled this line here on the thermometer is a 10, and each additional line is another degree. So we've got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this bigger line, that's a 15-degree line, and this is exactly how it looks on the thermometers, with the long lines with a number and then some very short and medium lines. So we went all the way to the medium line for air temperature, and that's a 15. So let's write in 15 here. And one thing that's important to note is our units. What degrees are we measuring in today? So our thermometers that we use as scientists usually are in degrees Celsius. And that's a little different from the degrees you're probably used to hearing when you think about the weather and what temperature things are. Most of the time people use degrees Fahrenheit. And what we're going to do at the end here is we'll do a really quick conversion so we can see what the similar number is in both. So let's try our water temperature now. So I got this water right from the lake right before we started, and I let our thermometer sit in it. So now I'm going to add, this one is a warmer temperature. So I'm going to add the red line up to where our water temperature is at today. So this was 15. Our water temperature is up here today. So let's figure out what temperature that is. So remember, this one was 15, we just figured out, so now we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 more degrees. So that makes 19. So our water temperature is 19 degrees today. So like I said, that might be kind of hard to think about when you're used to thinking in Fahrenheit. So let's do a really quick conversion and to make our Celsius degrees into the approximate Fahrenheit degrees. Temperatures like 19 are probably right here in the middle. It's a little bit warm for these very cold water loving fish, but it's okay. They'll be okay as long as it doesn't get too much hotter. So that probably says that our water quality temperature in the lake is good today. So the last thing, you might have a copy of a river journal that you've been filling out during all of these videos. So if you turn to page 2, you should have a table of all the water quality parameters that we've been going over. So on this page, right at the beginning, at the top, underneath all of our location and time that we wrote down, has air temperature and water temperature. So you can write down our numbers we found today, both in Celsius and Fahrenheit. Great. So now we're going to learn about pH. So if you haven't heard of pH before, that is a way we measure if things are acid, neutral, or basic. And that has a big influence on the health of animals too. So just briefly, let's look at the pH scale. So I have this diagram here, and things that are acidic are things like stomach acid, lemon juice, vinegar. And things that are basic or alkaline are things like soap or baking soda or really harsh cleaners. And then things that are really close to the middle, called neutral, are things like milk and water and blood. What's really important is water, pure water, is perfectly neutral, which is a 7 on the pH scale. So acidic things go down the scale towards 0. Basic things go up the scale towards 14. So when we are measuring pH, it's important because you always need to live in an environment that's really healthy. And for fish and other animals in the water, you want to be closer to pure water rather than closer to lemon. That doesn't sound like a very good place to live in. And it can really affect their bodies. When the pH is too extreme on either side, it can really hurt them. So it's good for us to make sure that we keep track and make sure our water is close to 7. Some of the things that can influence the pH of the water, some of them are natural, like what kind of rocks we have in the area. Rocks have a varying kinds of pH, a lot of times sometimes basic, so that can very slightly influence the water. But some things like maybe pollution would be very acidic. And so if we find that our water is more acidic, that could be why, and maybe something we need to investigate further. Alright, so now let's test our pH. So because I'm doing this on video, I have a couple extra things to test. One of the most common ways that we test for pH is something called a pH strip. And it comes in a little piece of paper with a little tab on the end with a color on it. And what's going to happen is I'm going to stick it in different substances, and this little tab is going to change colors. And the color is going to tell us what pH that substance is. So first let's try with a couple of items that I brought from home, just so we can see how the color changes. So first, this is lemon juice that I got from home. So I'm going to stick it in the lemon juice, and let's see how the color changes. Should change pretty fast. Alright, so now I have another substance I brought from home, which is a little bit of baking soda mixed with water, just so that it becomes a liquid. And so I'm going to stick my strip in this, And now let's see what color it changes. So I also have a picture of our water that we collected from the lake earlier. So let's dip our test strip into this pitcher of water from the lake and see what color it turns. All right, pretty great, huh? Let's compare all of our 3 test strips to each other. Okay, so this is our strip from the lake water. What number do you think that looks closest to? I'd say it looks pretty close to 6 or 7, which is about right, what we would expect for lake water. And now these are the 3 that we did in those other substances. Can you guess which of those test strips was in the lemon juice, which is acidic? And can you guess which of them is the baking soda, which is basic? And which of them was just the plain water from the spigot? So this green one, that's basic. That's the higher number. So that's the baking soda. This red one, this is way down here. That's the lemon juice, very acidic. So great job. We've measured the pH of our lake today, and it looks pretty healthy. It's very close to neutral. Okay, now that we've gotten our pH measurement, which we guessed was about a 7, we can add that up here. And we can also add that to your river journal. On the same page, just below the water temperature that you just filled out, there's a box for pH. And to the right of that is the long list of all the possible numbers. So go ahead and circle the number that you think we measured on our pH today from the lake. Once you've done that, you're well on your way to measuring all the water quality today in Loch Lomond.